For most of his life, Julian Lennon has lived in the shadow of a man the world worshipped, John Lennon. To millions, John was a peace icon, a poet, and a Beatle. But to Julian, he was someone else entirely, a father who was rarely there, a stranger who belonged more to the world than to his own son. And now, at 62, Julian has finally admitted something he's kept buried for decades. "I totally hated her," he said quietly, not with anger anymore, but with exhaustion. The her Julian was referring to wasn't a random person. It was Yoko Ono, the woman who changed his father's life, and his. When Yoko Ono entered John Lennon's world in the late 1960s, everything shifted. The Beatles were still together, but cracks had already begun to show. John, restless and searching, found in Yoko something he couldn't find anywhere else: understanding, creativity, rebellion. To the world, they were lovers and artistic partners. To young Julian, just a boy at the time, Yoko was the symbol of something else: loss. The loss of his father, the loss of the family he once knew. Julian was only 5 when his parents, John and Cynthia Lennon, divorced. From that day forward, his father became more myth than man, seen on TV, heard on the radio, but rarely around in person. Years later, Julian confessed, "I felt like I lost my dad when Yoko came into the picture. I didn't just lose him to her, I lost him to fame, to the Beatles, to the whole world." He didn't hate Yoko because she existed. He hated her because, in his young heart, she represented everything that took his father away. For decades, Julian carried that bitterness quietly, while John built a new life with Yoko and later welcomed another son, Sean. Julian watched from afar. He saw the photos, the interviews, the glowing headlines, and he couldn't help but feel forgotten. He once admitted, "I would see Sean being held and loved, and I couldn't remember my father ever holding me that way." The pain was deep, not just jealousy, but confusion. How could the man who sang about peace and love not share it equally with his own children? Julian's relationship with his father remained strained until John's tragic death in 1980. He was just 17 when he got the call that his father had been shot outside the Dakota Building in New York. In that moment, the anger and the love collided. There would be no more time to fix anything. As Julian grew older, he built a career of his own, hit songs like "Too Late for Goodbyes" and "Veloute," but no matter how far he ran, the ghost of his last name always followed. He often said, "It's both a blessing and a curse to be John Lennon's son." But over time, something changed. Julian began to see the world, and even Yoko Ono, with new eyes. When John died, Yoko handled most of his estate, and for years Julian felt completely shut out. He fought legal battles, he argued for recognition, but eventually the anger wore out. In his early 50s, Julian met Yoko again, not as a wounded son, but as a grown man seeking peace. He later said, "We've had our moments, but I've learned to forgive. Holding on to hate was only hurting me." It wasn't an instant reconciliation. It was slow, awkward, and human. Julian didn't pretend everything was fine, but he let go of what was poisoning him, and that's what makes his confession at 62 so raw and powerful. When he said, "I totally hated her," it wasn't bitterness anymore. It was honesty, the kind that comes only after a lifetime of reflection. Today, Julian Lennon stands as his own man. He's an artist, an environmentalist, and a storyteller. Not chasing his father's shadow, but honoring his own light. He often says that peace isn't inherited, it's chosen. And perhaps that's what he's done, made peace with his past, with Yoko, and with the memory of the father he lost too soon. Because even in hate, there was always love. Love, waiting to be understood, love finally set free. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to Legend Uncovered for more powerful hidden truths behind music's most legendary lives.